Hey, thanks for joining me. Big tragedy today in Essex. So a lorry was found to be carrying 39 people, all adults except one teenager, dead. 39 people. Unless I'm mistaken, this is the worst such incident in the UK since 2000, when 58 migrants of Chinese origin were found dead at a lorry in Dover. This incident occurred in Grays, Essex, on the Thames estuary. It's thought that the lorry originated from Holyhead in North Wales, so what appears to have happened is, and a man from Northern Ireland's been arrested. So the information is still trickling through. This was brought up at Prime Minister's Questions. Boris Johnson, Jeremy Corbyn, Ian Blackford all made references to it, and Priti Patel has made an official statement. It appears that what's happened is the traffickers have chosen Holyhead because it's a softer entry point than the traditional route, which would be on the Kent side of things. So obviously, information's going to come through as time goes on. It's thought that the lorry's origins were in Bulgaria, but that doesn't mean that the victims are Bulgarians. They could be from anywhere. They could be Iranians, they could be Syrians, they could be Nigerians, who knows. The information will obviously come through over time. It's, as was brought up in Parliament, also the MP for that constituency, Thurrock, mentioned that, the emergency services tasked with dealing with this, taking out 39 bodies, it's a horrendous thing. And one can imagine, I was just thinking of this, it was found in the early hours of this morning, so that would have been travelling through the night, through the English Midlands. Those people were suffocating to death. And it's tragic. Whatever your views on immigration, or rather migration, and I see myself as centre ground. I believe in common sense policies. I believe we need controls. And I don't think we can have a situation, for example, on the Mediterranean, where you just have an endless sea of humanity coming across with no sort of deterrent. Clearly, people are looking at Britain as a better way of life, despite everything that's going on with Brexit. But I think there is a risk that when these sort of things happen, it dehumanises the people involved. Each one of these are individual people with their own personalities, their own aspirations, and you'd have to be a pretty cold person not to feel some sort of human empathy for what's happened. I mean, this has happened on our shores. It's terrible. Like I say, there was that other incident in Dover in 2000, 58 poor Chinese migrants. Then in 2004, of course, a notorious incident at Morecambe Bay, which was actually made into a film by the title of Ghosts, when 23 Chinese cockle pickers drowned due to high tides and lack of communication skills and other factors. Very sad. Morecambe's a very dangerous area, I understand, with quicksand, with high tides. And what's obviously happened here is these migrants have suffocated to death. Where they're from, they could be from West Africa, the Middle East, who knows. Maybe 10-15 years ago I would have speculated to Eastern Europe, but I think now it's more likely to be the Middle East. So obviously information's going to come out over time. What can be done? Well, I think we need to look at the specifics of this case. I don't understand why ports cannot adopt the same sort of technology that airports do. For example, airports have sniffer dogs, airports have x-rays that can detect drugs, all those sort of things. It seems that ports don't have the same level of technology. I heard someone mention, I think it was on CNN, they were talking about you could have technology, for example, that picks up heartbeats, but maybe these people were already dead when the lorry was intercepted at Grays. And the person arrested from Northern Ireland, whether he's the driver, whether he's involved in this, and I should stress a point here, the driver may not necessarily be guilty of anything. The driver may be totally oblivious to what's happened. You know, their job is to get cargo to a destination. We saw, especially at the peak of the migrant crisis in sort of 2015, 2016, that migrants were literally jumping onto trucks as they were coming through, the channel, on the Calais side in particular, and drivers were talking about how physically dangerous it is for them. I think we need controls. We need to have a situation where people are deterred. I'm not saying that we should go for the Australian policy, which is pretty hard line of threatening to sink ships and so on, but clearly there cannot be a situation where people are risking their lives, where these evil traffickers are obviously feeling that they can exploit and scare people enough to come to the UK. Of course, they take away their passports. I think they're one of the most despicable kinds of criminals. I think they're up there with terrorists and paedophiles. I really think that they are the lowest of the low. And I do hope that the people responsible for this particular case are found and get a very, very lengthy custodial sentence. But like I say, this man who's been arrested, that may just be because he was a driver. It doesn't mean that he was necessarily involved in the gang or anything like that. So we need to treat that with caution. There will be some people who have become desensitized to the migrant issue, and they'll say, well, who cares? Just 39 more migrants. I think anyone with that attitude is, that to me is absolutely repugnant. You don't need to be very hard left or, not be sensible in terms of limits, in terms of that sort of thing. I mean, I see my attitude to this as centre ground in that I want better controls. I think people should have to integrate. I think we do need to get some sort of deterrence in place. But I'm not going to apologise for saying that I do feel sadness from this. I do feel grateful that I'm not in their shoes. That people are risking their lives in this way, that people are going through this sort of experience is horrible. So I hope the perpetrators are found and rigidly punished. And I hope this was an isolated incident. I do think it's the worst, like I say, since that 2000 Dover incident. I can't think of anything on this scale. I do remember once when I was studying in the West Midlands, there were some migrants that actually were hiding in the local recycling unit outside the Asda there. I remember I was leaving off stuff there one night, and it shocked me that there was movement inside. I mean, the extent that people will go to get into this country, to me it shows it's not just a financial thing. What sort of hell must you be fleeing to risk your life in that way, So like I say, information's going to emerge about this incident over time. Let's see what comes up.